Leeds, Leeds, Leeds. What is happening? Welcome to Working Hours, a show about a place called Leeds, a time called now, and an activity called work. Working Hours wants to record 1,000 loiners over the course of this, the most important decade in the history of the human species, and ask them about what they do all day and hear how they feel about it. My mission is to try to map out what my city, Leeds, a city that has declared a climate emergency, is doing during humanity's biggest emergency. On Working Hours, we hear how loiners have, are, and will be coping with our multiple crises: the global pandemic, Brexit, and of course, the ongoing and accelerating collapsing of capitalism, the state, and the climate through this decade. To do this, I need people like you, dear listener. Most of all, I need people who are in Leeds or who are from Leeds to come on this show and be my guests. So please join me and help me with this mission whenever and however you can. Critically, I will need people like you, dear listener, as financial backers. Please consider supporting or donating to this project. You can do so with a £1 monthly donation via either Patreon or Ko-fi, or you could donate any one-off amount to Working Hours via either Ko-fi or through the LibrePay button on the About page of Western Studios website. Thank you. My name is Simon, and this is all my fault. What did you want to be when you grew up?
And I've been racking my brains and I can't remember. So I don't know, it was probably it started up as like a ballerina or something, and then progressed to a vet, and seemed to remember at one point wanting to be a social worker. But I didn't ever have a kind of I want to do that when I grow up. And actually, have I grown up yet?
Can you even grow up?
Yeah. Does one indeed grow up?
Okay, so I'm going to ask the same question to you, Louise. What did you want to be when you grew up?
I felt very similar. I was thinking, what did I want to be? I don't remember having a calling that I wanted. But I really did want to be a vet at one point when I was really little, because I loved animals. And then as I grew older, realised that I had to do medical procedures and injections and blood, and that rolled it out for me.
Yeah, I at one point wanted to be a surgeon, and I was like not squeamish at all when I was little initially, and then at some point I was just like, no. You're listening to Series 3, Episode 42, and to my guests, Emma Waterland and Louise Hodgson. This is another Zoom interview recorded on the 15th of December, 2022. Happy New Year. Firstly, thank you. Thanks for 2,000 downloads, and it looks like they're mainly listeners from Leeds too, so thanks for that, Leeds. If you're an Outlander listening from elsewhere, it's still great to have you here, but I want this to be a local show first and foremost. Apart from anything else, it keeps me more accountable, hopefully. In the real, place matters. Time matters. That's what this podcast is about, time and place. And download numbers matter too. Hopefully, growth will accelerate now. Hopefully. It has done nothing but grow so far, passing 2,000 downloads, getting over 50 interviews recorded last year and publishing 41, while also living in our collapsing state and having to get additional work and. I'd done so much last year. I kind of amazed myself. Anyway, if you want to lock yourself into a really good advertising deal to reach a Leeds audience in an intimate way, now's your time to come and offer me your silver, because it's only going to get more expensive to do that as time goes on. Alternatively, listeners, if you already hear enough adverts and you'd like the show to be ad-free, then now is your time to join the Patreon and to encourage others to do so too. I need you so that I can help landlords and utility companies keep getting money for not doing much socially good, really. There's some dodgy audio on this episode, and poor or buggy recording quality on interviews or episodes is starting to become a bit of a bugbear for me, even if I am giving these to the majority of listeners for free. On this one, some of that poor quality is due to me and poor mic management on this particular recording. So my bad, apologies. You want better, you pay premium. Okay? Okay. Finally, something else we've learnt on this journey is that a series will wrap up in January, and the new season will thus begin in February. That's canon now. That's a rule. Hold me to it. LEDA is an environmentally considerate design cooperative created to help take us into a sustainable future. LEDA is creating and delivering sustainable building design locally and across the UK that underpins every project they undertake. Through specialist advice, LEDA enables their clients to deliver projects with reduced environmental impact and create buildings that can actually focus on improving the health and well-being of their occupants. Emma Waterland joined LEDA in 2021 and is responsible for the planning and implementation of their marketing strategy, working in close collaboration with directors and members to lead a strategic approach to the ongoing development of the business. This includes looking after the brand and communications, as well as promotional activities and bid management. Emma has over 20 years of experience of business development and marketing in the built environment sector, having previously worked for contractors, engineering consultants, and architects. Louise Hodgson joined LEDA in April 2019 and is their practice manager. Prior to this, Louise taught geography to 11 to 18-year-olds in secondary school for 8 years, inspiring young people to learn about the physical world around them and helping pupils to understand the environment and how they can shape the places where they live. Louise's role at LEDA is a mix of office management, finance, business support, and human resources. Louise is LEDA's Green Champion and completes the audit and report for their Investors in the Environment accreditation every year. Louise has a real interest in protecting the environment we can't live without and promoting continuing to be able to live on our only home. She is a valued co-op member and drives forward developments within the co-op. Go to leda.coop to find out more about LEDA, especially if you have any knowledge of Passive House, because they're hiring. This is the first co-op I have had on the show, and just because of the way this organisation is structured, it means we get a completely unique answer here to one of the questions. Watch out for that. Anyway, let's crack on with this episode of Working Hours with Emma Waterland and Louise Hodgson from LEDA. So I'll stay with you, Louise, for this.
Mhm.
So what is it that you're doing now?
So what I do now is I'm the practice manager for Leeds Environmental Design Associates, or LEDA. And that role is a mix of office management, HR, finance, whatever else Steve's doing.
Yeah, so again, to you, Emma, same question. What is it you're doing now?
Yeah, so I work for the same company and my role is in marketing and business development. And so anything about our presence in the market and work winning, I look after that for LEDA.
Okay, so because you're marketing, I'm
Yeah.
going to ask you to do the spiel bit. So tell us a little bit about LEDA and yeah, because you're a cooperative as well. You're not just...
We are a member-owned cooperative, and that means that the people who work for the cooperative are members of the cooperative, and we all get a share of any profits and all have equal say in decisions that affect the running of the cooperative. But in terms of what we actually do, we are mechanical and electrical design engineers and sustainability consultants and architects.
And what's your kind of reach? Are you regional, national, local?
So we're based in Leeds, and we have a kind of, it's more of an environmental approach to our work, in that we don't like to fly globally to service projects, but we're happy to take public transport to sites. So we don't work the length and breadth of the country, but we do have we have done projects in London or over in Cumbria. So we do work that's not in Yorkshire, but we are based in Leeds and a lot of our work is local.
Okay, so Louise, you're working from home today. So in terms of kind of office management, how are you working at the moment? Like, do you have office space, and have you had that office space, and have you just recently moved to a hybrid model, or have you been
Yeah.
working like that for a while?
So we do have office space. We're based in Cross Green, just like East Leeds, still in the centre. And we've had that since we were founded in 2000, I believe. And that's where we've always worked. But then since COVID and forced working from home, well, mandatory working from home if you can, we worked from home for a period of time, and then we've gradually gone back to the office. But we've come to a hybrid working pattern that works for us.
Yeah, so I'll stay with you, Louise. So how did you get into it? How did you come to be in the role?
I used to be a teacher in a secondary school. And then I had 2 young kids and decided to take a step back from teaching. And then the short version is I saw the job advert, and I know quite a few people that work for workers' cooperatives and was really keen to also work for a workers' cooperative, but didn't have any experience in the construction or engineering industry, but thought that I still had a lot of valuable skills that I could bring to the role. So I applied, and yes, that's how I got the role.
Yeah, so how long have you been there now?
3.5 years.
So Emma, same question to you. How did you come to be in this role?
So my background since 1999 has been in the kind of built environment sector. So I've always worked for either contractors or consultants. Prior to this, I was working for an architectural practice, and I knew one of the directors of LEDA as we'd worked together before. And I think same as Louise, really, in that I was interested in the idea of working for a cooperative rather than a more traditional sort of business model.
I mean, how does it work practically for you guys? I mean, is it all team meetings all the time, or like how does it operate in practice?
Who wants to?
Sorry, I'll question to you, Emma.
So yeah, we have one monthly team meeting, and then we have various subgroups that look after different aspects of the business, like marketing or HR, or so there are meetings, and they are fairly regular. But we have platforms that we use for kind of debate and discussion. And we keep that on the sort of online platforms. And so, yeah, there is discussion about decisions, but it tends not to get in the way too much.
So, Louise, does it feel like you kind of, being part of Cooperative, does it feel like you kind of know holistically about the business and what's going on everywhere rather than,
I think one of the benefits of working for a workers' cooperative is that one of the principles of being a cooperative is to be actively engaged and active participation within the running of the business. So we ask everybody to be part of one of the subgroups, and that's how we operate. So everybody can do their day job, but they're also part of either being in the finance group, the marketing group, the HR group, well, we call it people group. There's a sustainability group, quality and standards group. So there's loads of ways that people can get involved. And so you get a really good view about how a small business is run. And because we are employee owned, we own the company ourselves, and we're democratically run, so decisions are made democratically. And that can be different, whether it's a small decision or a large decision. We do give the subgroups power and accountability to run their kind of departments. We're only small, but we allow them to make decisions as part of their remit. But yeah, I think everybody gets a good sense of what's going on in the organisation. Our team meetings, we're open and transparent. We have an open and transparent pay structure. Yeah, but
so
we share everything.
Everyone knows what everyone else is getting.
Yep.
So from a HR perspective, do people come clamoring for the jobs when they're available? Is it easy to find the people with skills? Is it difficult when people join you? Is it like quite an adjustment period for someone kind of being in a cooperative of like, oh, my opinion suddenly counts? Like, what's it like?
I actually think it's a draw, and it's one of something that is attractive to people when we recruit. And there's not that many cooperatives in our industry. There are thousands of cooperatives in the UK, but there's not that many in our industry, and especially in Leeds. So I definitely think it's attractive.
Yeah.
And I think people want to get involved. The kind of people that apply, they want to be part of the organisation and get involved in decision making.
So
Mhm.
Emma, I noticed on your website that you also work with Passive House and Passive
Yep.
House standards and so on.
Yeah.
Was that something that was planned from the beginning, or is it something you recently got involved with? Like, what's your relationship to Passive House?
So the company was started by a group of people who wanted to design buildings in the most sustainable way possible, really, and that were going to try and address the environmental issues that are faced by everybody, but in particular in the construction industry. And so that has developed over time. So at the time, we were quite sort of cutting edge and at the forefront of doing environmental design. Obviously, now everybody it wants to go along those lines, but Passive House was, I suppose, a natural step, and we were probably among the first to be sort of going down that route when we started looking at it. It's kind of a no-brainer, really, if you're looking at environmental design. To achieve actual Passive House certification takes quite a lot of effort and design and thought, and it's not cheap, but ultimately it's about what's right for not just for the environment, but also for people who are faced with rising energy bills and, about making things that there's got to be financial incentive as well as environmental incentive.
Yeah.
So we designed to Passive House standard if a client doesn't want to necessarily pay for the certification and actually get a tick in the box that says this is a Passive House certified building, we apply Passive House principles to a lot of our design anyway. So that it might not have the badge, but it certainly kind of follows those rules.
So as a essentially a green company, in terms of policy and so on, are you trying to extend that all the way through supply chain, and like how holistic is that? Is it very much internally focused, or?
No, it's very not just on the environmental side. If you take the cooperative element of our business, we try and work with other cooperatives as much as possible. So things like I mentioned, the platform that we use for sharing ideas and having discussions online, that's a company called Lumio, and they're a cooperative. We use a cooperative for our phone systems. And that applies on the environmental side as well. We're currently going through the process of applying for B Corp certification. So that's something that we've looked at, and supply chain, will form part of that. But we do try and walk the walk ourselves, but also expect the people that we work closely with to be of a similar mindset.
I suppose, and as well being a cooperative, because you're all having that conversation together. I mean, you're going to be on the same page. You're going to be not always, obviously, but like the consensus that's made will move in that direction. So you're kind of structurally unable to just be kind of hermetically sealed. You have to be outward thinking in terms of your green agenda and so on.
Yeah.
So Louise, I want to come to you on this as well, because you're kind of, I've read on your bio that you're kind of a bit of a green champion as well. So like, how did you find that coming in? Was that very much part of why you wanted to join LEDA?
Yeah, and I think that's the kind of people that are attracted to LEDA. So I was the green champion for we had this accreditation called Investors in the Environment, and we had that for 13 years. But we decided in the last year to go for B Corp because the investing environment was brilliant, and we had to do so many things to get this accreditation to make our office and our business really environmentally friendly. But it didn't include the community and there's other aspects. The B Corp, so we thought the B Corp would be a step further. So me and Emma have been doing that application that is very in-depth, which again, she's mentioned about the supply chains. It raises so many questions. In a good way, it got us thinking, you have to change your purpose as a business. You can't just be about making profit. And that comes with all of the questions that pop up from that, like what are we actually doing? What's our purpose? Where are we going? What's our plan in the future? So I think the sustainable aspect of LEDA and the cooperative, it attracts those kind of people that really like-minded, but equally we don't always get on, obviously, but very like-minded people who want to give back to the community and do something that's good for the world.
Yeah, and I think it just sits together. You don't get many cooperatives who are only about making profit that they can share with each other. And, generally speaking, cooperatives tend to have a much more holistic view and want to take the environment seriously and embody good environmental practices into their business. So they go hand in hand, I think.
Well, it wants to take its staff seriously as well, like as equal partners of like, we're all working on this together.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go into some of the other questions now. So I'm going to start with you, Louise, this time. So this is the COVID question, and we kind of touched on some of it. But I want you to kind of think back to when we went into lockdown, whether you locked down or not, like what you were doing at the time, what your workload was like, whether it suddenly increased or whether it drops off the cliff, and then to think about how that changed your work in the long term. Like, has it had a long-term effect on how you're working?
Yeah, so we all went to working from home when that was the directive because we could work from home, but some people did work from home, but we weren't fully set up. So we had to get everybody set up to work from home, and we all went to work from home. And we quickly realised that we still needed to support people because we weren't having those informal conversations. So we set up the 11 a.m. meeting. And do you remember that, Emma?
Yeah.
So every day, 11 o'clock, people would have a 5 or 10 minute catch up. And it ended up being quite a nice way of, it was always informal. There was always meetings going on, but it was a way to see everybody and catch up. And it was during this time that we signed up to Lumio, because I don't think we had Lumio before. So Lumio is a discussion platform, but it's designed by another cooperative. So they're very much designed for polls and proposals and hearing each other out. So we'd signed up for this platform that really helped us communicate and collaborate whilst we were all at home. And then, like most businesses, we had a bit of a stop-start to coming back into the office. Like, oh no, we need to go back home. So
A bit of a hokey-cokey.
it was a getting out. We took a while to establish what was right for us, and I think loads of businesses struggled with that. So I don't think we were alone. So we were like, let's get back into the office, but we still want a bit of freedom, so everyone could pick their days. And then people pick their days, and we realised that actually you don't really see anyone, and there isn't really much point in to go into the office and just sitting on a video call. So it's a really fine balance, and especially as all our decisions are democratically made, we needed to come to a decision that worked for everyone. Those democratic decisions, the majority voted though, so there is still a possibility of getting those decisions, but you don't need to have everybody on board. But once those decisions are made, everybody has to be on board.
Yes,
because we have voted on it.
Yes.
So it took a while for us to get to a place that worked for us. So in the end, we decided to condense the office time to the beginning of the week, so we could still pick 2 days and come into the office 2 days a week. But those 2 days needed to be either Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday. And it means now that we do see everybody, and the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday are really nice days in the office, aren't they, Emma? Because they're busy, we see people, and lots of meetings. But then we've got the end of the week where we can still plan meetings. You can intensively work at home if you want to, if that suits you, without any distractions.
And in terms of your workspace and so on, like how was the adjustment to working at home? Was that quite easy for you? Like, did you have a space? Were you able to separate work and life? Like, did it all become blurred? Like, what was that experience like for you?
It was not easy because I've got young kids.
Mm.
So, it was
So were
just,
you like just literally trying to work in the bedroom?
well, when they were off school during that
Yeah.
period of lockdown,
Mm.
it was just a big juggle. Yeah. But I'm lucky that I have a house and we had a spare room that we could work in. But I was just juggling it with my partner.
Were you
It
both
just-
working in the same space then, or were you?
Pretty much.
Is it like
or
a
the
tag
kitchen
team of
table.
like you do a few hours?
Yeah.
Mm.
Tag teaming the children, basically. That's not ideal in any scenario.
No, I mean, do you feel like have you got like now you're into this sort of more settled hybrid model? Like, is it working now? Is it a more settled? Like, does it feel better now than an everyday schlep into the office kind of thing?
Yeah, I really like hybrid working. I
Yeah.
wouldn't want a fully remote job. I really like seeing people, feeling more part of a team, and you can work together, collaborate on a virtual, but I think you miss that connection and those informal chats. And I think that's still really important. So hybrid working really works for me. I really like.
And you'd miss the people as well. I mean, you know, especially in a cooperative, like you're working in a cooperative to cooperate with other people.
Exactly.
You want to see them.
Yeah. And also we found that newer staff members or graduates who needed that informal support and almost learning by osmosis by being in the office with seniors, that is almost impossible at home. So I think to support newer workers, it's really important to be with them.
Yeah. So Emma, same question to you, if you can remember the question. It was a bit ago. But yeah, like your kind of COVID experience, was it an increase in work? Was like, because a lot of people, it was kind of, all right, we shut down, it was all chaos, don't know what's going on. But then it was kind of like, oh, well, I'm just sitting around not doing anything now. Like, obviously that wasn't LEDA's experience, but yeah, how was it for you?
I actually joined LEDA in the middle of lockdown.
Mhm.
So, yeah, that was strange.
Did you interview remotely as well?
Did I? Yes, I did.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I started in March 21.
Mm.
So, interviewed remotely. I mean, I did know a few of them before anyway, because of my connections in the kind of industry. But then starting a new company and meeting it every morning at 11 o'clock on Zoom, and then we had a welcome social, which was an online escape room, and it was very strange. And but at the time, you just you roll with it, don't you? Because that's what you've got to do, and you try and make things enjoyable. We used to have online yoga lessons.
Didn't we?
Yeah, and not that I ever did one, but
I loved them. We did loads actually. I was really trying to find
And
that
then
connection.
as the situation allowed, we would meet up for a walk somewhere, or just to try and say hello face to face. So yeah, the first time I did actually meet everybody was quite strange. But personally, so I also moved house in the middle of lockdown, and had a lot of work to do on the new house, and so that was quite a juggle, sort of trying to find a space all on a regular basis as renovations were happening. But because me and my husband were both in the same boat, but we got some screens and some laptop stands and some keyboards, and just set up where we could.
Yeah. How were you both on the kind of, well, the health and safety sides? I mean, were you taking breaks? Were you sitting properly, or was it all hunched over?
Trying to.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's funny that we do. I mean, it's obviously important that we do those assessments, but then sometimes you look around the office, and you think, sure, you shouldn't be sitting like that. But you've got to try and encourage people to be
Yeah.
healthy.
Yeah.
We've
Encourage-
got, somebody's got a standing desk in the office, haven't they?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, they're good. I bought one for myself. Yeah, it's nice to have the variation. Let's do social media because I think it'd be interesting. So I'll start with you, Emma, on this one. So what I want to look at here is, again, how social media has affected your work, but I also want to look at kind of the amount of work, the amount of time that you have to spend on social media if you do any, and whether you feel that time spent is well spent. Does it show, visible results to you? Can you definitely see that this is beneficial?
Okay. So here's where I show my age, because when I first started working for an M&E contractor in 99, I think we'd only just got email.
Mm.
So social media just didn't exist. It wasn't a thing. I think we used to send a printed newsletter out to our customers on a kind of 6-monthly basis. So yeah, I've seen a massive change in kind of what form marketing takes and advertising and communication. So that's really interesting. But I think it's important to keep quite balanced with it. We don't post daily, and we don't actually do an e-newsletter, because I'm very conscious of the kind of stuff that I get in my inbox, and I don't want to become part of that kind of email litter. So I think our presence on social media is quite a light touch, and it's also quite friendly and informal, and we are trying to kind of work on that and build up a presence as a sort of industry thought leader, and can lead some conversations about topics in the industry. But I think I've been tasked with kind of building that up. When I joined LEDA, we had a very active Twitter account, but didn't really do much else. And I'm now doing an overhaul of the website, and I've built up an Instagram account. And sorry.
There's been a few dogs on this show.
Yeah, I bet they have. Yeah.
Dogs and children.
Yeah.
And airplanes.
So does that answer the question?
Yeah, I mean, like, maybe just tell us a little bit more. You were kind of going a bit more into the kind of marketing strategy. Like, what do you? I would imagine you have to be really quite targeted with it. It's, you can't be scattershot, because you are very much, you're looking for particular clients, and particular clients or potential clients are looking for, you, I suppose.
Yeah, although I mean there is a level of targeting, but then it's about just raising our profile generally, so that when that client randomly is looking for somebody who might do passive house design in Leeds or sustainable advice in York or whatever, that they find you then. And we do have repeat work with some of our clients, but quite often it could just be a random email or phone call coming into the office, and it's really difficult to get a handle on how that they found you. Obviously, you can ask them, it might have just been a Google search, but even that in itself is an art, isn't it? And making sure you come up in the searches. So there is, to some extent, there is a scattergun approach, because it's a bit sort of, if you throw enough out there, somebody will pick it up.
Yeah.
But yeah, then some of it is specifically targeted at certain clients. So there's a mix, really.
So Louise, same question for you. Like, how much social media work do you have to do? I would imagine.
Yeah, not much. Emma does most of our social media.
She just has to like everything when I tell her to.
I do like everything. But I would say LinkedIn is a form of social media.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
We've recruited through. Well, no, we haven't recruited through LinkedIn.
We've had
we definitely
inquiries.
we've used it as a recruitment tool. And you post on LinkedIn, don't you? And
Yeah,
that's part of our
regularly.
social media spectrum. Yeah, I've been more involved in the recruitment side, so I've used LinkedIn.
Do you have to build any sort of specific adverts or target those specifically, or again, do you go quite sort of scattershot for recruitment ads?
We do a bit of both. We have done a bit of both. You can do some quite specific targeting and say, this is the type of person I'm looking for. But then we also will just post as a company to say, we're hiring.
Yeah.
And you building up the followers on LinkedIn, which you've done loads on all our social, but that just means that when you do post, you've just got such a wider spread of people that will see it.
Yeah, and you quite often get, so for example, we work quite closely with the Green Building Store, and their spread kind of goes wider than ours, but they are a quite a strong connection of ours. So if we post a vacancy, they will generally share it, and you get that organic growth. So having said that, it has been difficult to recruit, hasn't it, Louise?
We've had periods of success, and then I think a lot of people have struggled in the last 6 months or so. Recruitment's been a struggle for some people. And having said that, we've got a really good team at the moment. So I think we've come to a place where, we struggled. We had a difficult period. Now we've got a really good team.
Yeah, it's sort of enough people there to the right balance.
Yeah. And it's finding the right people.
Yeah.
That want to work for our kind of business.
Yeah. Since we have Brexited, have you noticed any change in your work?
This is a difficult question because it's so tied up with the same time period of COVID. Me personally, because I'm not one of the architects or engineers, I don't feel like it's impacted me. But as a business, I've definitely heard people say that the work has been impacted because they couldn't get hold of products or suppliers. And we are part of a large process when it comes to building. So I know that there's been delays and that's then impacted their workload. So I don't know any more than that. Can you say any more, Emma?
No, I mean, it is so enmeshed. We've had a double whammy. And I think my personal impression is that Brexit has been pretty catastrophic for us. I struggle to understand how that's affecting our job market, specifically for LEDA. But I suppose that's to do with maybe graduates being able to come over and work. I'm not sure. But
I mean,
supply
squeeze on labour supply, maybe.
Yeah, but it's material supplies as well.
Yeah.
I mean, so where we're specifying ground source heat pumps or boilers and pipes and wires and all the stuff that we design. Obviously, with the passive house kind of side of things, a lot of those things are not made in the UK. So supply issues are a real problem. And I know personally, from doing a building project myself, the cost of things has just gone absolutely through the roof. Materials. So whether that's Brexit related or COVID related or just a perfect storm of everything all at once, it's difficult to pick things out. But I know it won't have, Brexit certainly won't have helped.
I just thought of an impact on, we had to source an inverter for our PV, the solar panels on the roof, and just couldn't get them. So we had the full summer this year of not getting any energy supply from our solar panels because we couldn't source an inverter. And the people we use, we know the people to speak to. We just couldn't get one. So that impacted our office. It wasn't ideal because our bills went up because we weren't using our solar panels.
Yeah, and that's through summer when, we've had the most sunlight ever.
Yeah.
It's like all that energy that would have been
so annoying. Yes.
So obviously, as a eco-friendly, ecological cooperative, you changes on your radar and on your agenda, and to a large degree, you're obviously, as a business, responding to it and designed in response to it. But my question is about how in your work, you can do things to either raise awareness or increase mitigation or adaptation regarding climate change. So I'll start with you again, Louise.
I just think it runs through the core of our values and our principles and everything we do in terms of how we run the business. I already mentioned we had that Investors in the Environment accreditation, and we won awards through that as well over the years. And now we're going through B Corp, and it just absolutely forms part of our purpose. And the people that want to work for us also share those values.
I mean, how does that affect you personally? Like, you know, as a green champion, as someone who's come out of, you know, other work in other sectors and to go into this, I mean, is it kind of a dream job to a degree?
Yeah, well, I mentioned I used to be a teacher. I was a geography teacher.
Yeah.
So I was already all about the environment.
Yeah. So, I mean, it must be nice to be in a company where it's like, yeah, you know, I don't feel bad about what I do.
Yeah, and I think when I left teaching, I found it really hard to think about what I was going to do next, because in teaching, it's such a rewarding profession. I mean, it's very challenging and really stressful in many ways, but it's so rewarding because you know that
meaning.
Absolutely, yeah. And I wanted a job that I knew would have meaning, and I knew that I was contributing in some way. So that was really what was really attractive about LEDA for me.
Okay, Emma, same question to you.
It is what we do. You know, and Louise is right in terms of, you know, how we have it running through the core of our business and our activities and our, you know, day-to-day stuff. But our job is to design buildings that don't harm the environment and that make the most of natural resources and don't rely on fossil fuels or, you know, don't produce any carbon. And so it's what we do. So if that wasn't the nuts and bolts of our business activity, if that wasn't running through LEDA like letters through a stick of rock, then there would be something wrong. 20 odd years ago, it was a group of friends and associates that decided something needed to happen that wasn't the norm, there wasn't the standard that everybody else was doing, and they wanted to try and do something better. And so now we are here. LEDA have been at the forefront, as I say. Yeah, it is absolutely the lifeblood of everything that we do, really.
Was it a big draw to you? Was it nice to kind of jump at the opportunity of like...
So where I was before, their approach to sustainability was a bit kind of skeptical, a bit cynical about it. You know, the term greenwash is used quite a lot, and they said, well, you know, the best way to be sustainable is to just design the building well from the outset and to make sure that there's no waste. And but there is a lot more to it than that. It's not, you know, there are nice pithy things that you can say about it, but I don't think there are many companies that really walk the walk.
Well, I mean, the whole life cycle for a start. I mean, the fact that you're considering the end of the building's life, how it's going to be taken apart. That's like, you're already just, you know, 100% ahead of everyone else from that. Yeah.
And so I suppose it's always been, you know, prior to the architects, I was consultants, and they were starting to develop their sustainability team, and that was obviously starting to become a growth area of the business. So something I've always been aware of. Yeah, I was interested in LEDA for that reason. But I would say personally, I couldn't describe myself as a green champion. You know, I will try where I can, but I'm not as good as Louise.
I mean, you're still working in this. That's where you spend most of the time. That's my
contribution.
Yeah, well, it is, but it's a massive contribution.
Yeah,
most of us, we have to go and, you know, it's like, we'll have to go and work for an airline or whatever. You know, it must feel better on that level, at least. It's like, well, I'm doing a bit.
Yeah. It all gets cancelled out by my family. That's what I'll say.
So I'm going to start off with you then this time, Emma. The UBI question. So if there was a universal basic income
Yeah.
How do you think that would change your work? Would you still be doing what you're doing now? Would you do it as much? Would you do something different? Would you do something else?
So I saw this question and mulled it over, and I'm not quite sure is the answer.
Mm.
I suspect I would probably be doing the same.
Mm.
Um, and maybe that's because maybe I don't fully understand the concept of a UBI. And maybe you could explain that.
It's basically you're just getting a benefit that's enough to pay your bills, essentially. So
Yeah.
you're getting an income that gave you a benchmark living standard, so you can't fall beneath it.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you want to include universal basic services as well, which would be like free transport and libraries and other provisions, so that you don't have to worry about those expenses because they're essential expenses for life. That kind of thinking. But the question is also another way of asking: if money was no object, what would you do?
I find it really difficult to answer as an
Too abstract,
individual.
too theoretical.
As an individual, I don't feel like I can answer it. I think society as a whole would really benefit, but from my own perspective, I can't quite see that. If money was no objective, if I didn't have to think about finance and paying for things, then I suspect I would probably be doing something that was a lot more sort of directly involved with helping people, or
I thought you were going to say something more kind of extreme sporty then. I don't know why.
Oh God.
I'd be doing something really dangerous.
Oh no. Oh no, extreme digging. That's about the extent of my no, I really struggle with that question, I've got to be honest.
This is an interesting one as well. Like, I don't know, but from my recent thinking is that I think it's related to not sort of knowing what you wanted to be when you grew up, kind of thing, of like, what do I want to do? Because you then have a new puzzle, isn't it?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
What am I supposed to be doing? What's my role now? If it, I've go and get a job is something that you can understand. It's kind of like, yeah, go and do that. But I think it might be just like, well, I don't know. I'd have to think of what I was doing.
Yeah.
Because so many people attach meaning to their work as part of their life, and that's them. So taking that away is a difficult concept, isn't it?
If you didn't need to work, if you didn't need to earn money, I'd like to create stuff.
That's a good answer. Louise?
I'm glad Emma went first, because it is a tricky question. I think society and morally, I agree. I am in favour of the UBI, and would like to see more equal distribution of wealth. And would I still be working? If LEDA was still going, I'd probably give some time happily to keep, because that's I want to do that for the business, but maybe I'd do something else. I might have an animal sanctuary or something. I was wondering, because she knew I was going to say that.
It's still the secret vet there.
I know, I really do want an animal sanctuary.
You'd rescue battery hens.
I probably would. And rabbits.
So are you both familiar with the sort of Upton Sinclair quote of like, it's very difficult to get a man to understand something when his wage depends on him not understanding it?
I wasn't aware of that, but no, that's good.
So I think I think that question for you two, because you're both working in a groovy cooperative, it's kind of like, well, of course I'd still work. I'd do a great job. It's great. So it's not hard, really. It's too easy, because it's just like, no, I would do this job. Good. That's how I've just reinterpreted it.
Okay.
Not what you said at all. Okay, so this I'm going to start with Louise this time, but I think this is quite a hard question as well. So this is the change question. So if you can change any 3 things about your work right now, what would they be?
Yeah, again, I looked at this question and thought, I'm not sure, because we work for a workers' cooperative, we're employee-owned, democratically run, and if we want to change something, we can change it. That's the best thing about where we work. And for a few years, there'd be a situation where someone would say, oh, it'd be good if we did that. And then nothing would really happen. So then we put a proposal system in place where if you want to propose something, there's a structure to follow. There was flow charts. This is what you do. This is what you do. And then it gets to the point where we've discussed it and then we vote on it. And there can be really big proposals we've had one recently about paying overtime and paying time in lieu. And that's a really big change to how we pay ourselves. But then there can be small proposals like, I think we should buy something for the office that's, I don't know, can we buy some more plants for the office? They can be really small and that can just be a poll, an instant poll. Anything we want to change, that's the beauty of a workers' co-op. We can change. But having said that, I think something I'd really like us to do more of is one of the guiding principles, the 7 principles of being a co-op. One of them is to give back to the community. And I wish we had more time and resource because we're just so busy, aren't we, Emma? And we never we've planned things to be able to give our time, and we do donate. We've been talking about giving donations to local community groups for Christmas, but I'd really like us as a team of people to give more back to the community if I could change one thing. And it's just, we really struggle with time because everybody's really overworked.
So Emma, same question.
I would like our office to be a passive house building.
That's a great answer. It's in the pipeline, Emma. We have talked about it a lot, but it's again one of those things. It's a long-term plan of ours, isn't it?
Yeah. So what was the question again? 3 things that I would change about my work. Yeah, I'd like the engineers to have a bit more time on their hands to do things like Louise has mentioned, but also to engage a bit more with the thought leading side of my strategy. I can come up with ideas, but I'm not an engineer. I can't talk about, the benefits of passive house. I can't talk about, what are people doing wrong with air source heat pumps. I need technological input, and people are just too busy to kind of pull themselves out of their project work and write something down for me.
So, Louise, is there anything that we haven't talked about that you'd like to sort of touch upon, or anything that you want to bring up?
We've talked about everything I've anticipated. Thank you for sharing the questions. I really enjoyed it.
Good. Emma, do you want to give us, like, where can people find LEDA and...
Yeah, so our website is LEDA.coop.
It's one E, isn't
That's
it?
LEDA.coop. And check us out. It is going to have an overhaul very shortly, so comes with that caveat. But if you are interested in sustainable services, building services, architecture, design, engineering, or cooperatives, check us out, get in touch.
And why wouldn't you be, I say?
Exactly.
What's wrong with you if you're not?
It's the way forward.
I am very surprised to see not just 1 but 2 sort of passive house companies in the city. So yeah, that's really good to see.
What made you find us?
Well, I went through the list of co-ops. So the Co-op Society, there's a whole kind of list, which I'd been on before ages ago. I kind of wanted to set this up as a co-op, but I can't have a co-op of myself.
Well, so you're interested? Right. You're interested already in co-ops then?
Yeah. So my background is in unions. So I was down in London, worked at the TUC for about 10 years. Was working at Union Learn, did a bunch of qualifications while I was doing that, and got all excited about lifelong learning and so on. And because I've had so many jobs, like my plan was I was going to make films. I was going to be a filmmaker. I didn't care what I was doing, and I just did a bunch of jobs, and then did some traveling and stuff. And then I ended up at the TUC, And I was kind of like, well, the film thing's not really going to happen unless I make a real effort on it. I came back to Leeds, did a bunch more jobs. I was like, I've done all these jobs. I've got all that union experience. I think I've got a pretty unique take on work and modern working and so on. So I was like, I'll do this. So that's how I came into it. But I was already aware of co-ops and some of the history of co-ops and so on. So I wanted to have them on. I did want to have on here a big thing. Like I wanted to have more about democracy at work, and I'm thinking about bringing that in as a question. I wanted to have more talk about unions. Again, we've done some of that. I'm going to try and make that more built into the episodes. So like I say, this is partly, I kind of want to promote some working class voices. I want to promote some good companies, but I also kind of want to record what's happening because I think of this as quite a transition time. Yeah, that's my plan with it all. Again, surprised how many co-ops were still in Leeds, and especially surprised to see you guys because it was like, oh, that's, because it's quite a high, like it's a skilled co-op, like engineering, and so it's not like it's just a bunch of people that have got together and gone, right, we're gonna create this company all by ourselves. And I suppose, going back to that initial question of like the recruitment and so on and working in a co-op, there's a different experience and getting those processes in place, because you've got to build them. Well, some you can kind of model, but you've got to build a lot of them from scratch, like you were saying, Louise, with that process of proposals.
Mm. I think there's a big element of co-ops supporting each other as well. So we tried to get involved in, the Campus UK is a really good way of training and support, a good place for that. They've overseen our policies and our contracts and things. So we've had support through them. And there has been some West Yorkshire co-op meetings, but again, they fell down a bit during COVID. We've been thinking about us trying to set that one up again, haven't we?
Yeah, it's something that we ought to pick up and lead, really.
Yeah, we're really keen to be supportive of each other. And like Emma had said, in terms of our procurement of products and things, we always try and go for co-ops first.
I suppose, is there any kind of like business prejudice of sort of people will overlook you because you are a co-op, or?
Can't see. What do you think, Emma?
I don't think they would rule us out of getting work because we're a co-op. I think there is sometimes an attitude of, we're considered to be sort of tree-hugging hippies types. Well, in comparison to the big corporates out there, yes, absolutely.
I think I live in a bubble with other tree huggers.
Yeah.
Sounds like a nice place.
Yeah, tree hugging is just your world.
I just didn't realise that people feel like that.
And, I think the comment that I've come across sometimes is along the lines of, what you're trying to save the world one passive house at a time. I'm like, well, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yes, we are unusual, and there is going to be an element of maybe misunderstanding or misconceptions, and we will always do our best to educate and enlighten.
Go on, sorry.
I was thinking about I don't know whether this fits into your work mold really, but there's a project in Leeds that we were involved in from a design perspective that is a cooperative of people doing self-builds. And it was featured on a TV program. It's called Chaco. It's just on the ring road out near towards Sheepscar.
Chappertown Housing, isn't
it? Yeah. So I don't know whether you.
Yeah. Well, I
you're
tried.
Aware of it, I want.
Yeah, I tried to get someone from it on because I was assuming that there would be someone working on it, and they were kind of like, "Well, we're not really working on it, so it's not." So, but yeah, I'd be interested to hear about it. Yeah, sure.
I'll send you the link to the program if you haven't already seen it.
Yeah. But yeah, so do you know much about that? Like, how did you get involved? Were you there for the full process? Or
Yeah, so we did the design. I think we did the architecture as well, didn't we, Louise? It's just going back before my time, but it's been a long time getting out of the ground. But
a lot of the time these projects there's delays and they just go on years.
yeah, and it's not.
Yeah, it's been on with it for a while.
They're not built to passive house standard, but I think they are AECB, which is an equivalent sort of British classification. But it's an interesting project, and in your concept of the whole work thing, they do have other jobs, but they are required to spend a certain amount of time for the cooperative and working on the projects, and some of them must be in by now.
They are.
Yeah, I think
being a cooperative has active participation, so I'm not sure whether that's one of the principles, but I don't know if it does class as work.
No.
But housing co-ops, there's another one, Lilac, there.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I heard about that a while ago. Yeah, that's a really interesting one, because that's Hempcrete build, was it?
Yes.
Yeah.
If you're interested in how co-ops, cooperatives and unions, and there isn't that much involvement because we're employee-owned.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a really large workers' co-op called Suma Whole Foods. I don't know if you've heard of that. It's in Ireland, in Halifax. And they're really big. And I think they do have some union involvement, which is quite an odd dynamic because they're a workers' co-op. But I don't really know much more about that, but I just know that they do have some union involvement.
Well, I mean, it was kind of, to some degree, you've got a lot of cooperatives coming out of people, frustrated unionists, isn't it? Or practical unionists who are like, let's just do this. But they kind of have a intersecting parallel, but not, history, don't they? They're not doing the same thing, but similar-ish. But to a degree, it's about more worker power, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think I can't see how a small employee-owned worker co-op like ours would need a union, because if we want to change something, we can do that. We have the decision making.
Yeah, the ideology of it all is kind of would make a union a bit redundant in theory.
I've avoided asking kind of a democracy at work question, because I was like, I think for most people it'd just blow their mind. Just be like, what? My opinion account.
Yeah, we have to explain what a co-op is. And most people think of the co-op on the high street, and you work for the co-op? No, we're a workers' co-op. And then I have to explain what that is to most people. Most people don't know what it is.
Yeah, which is why I wanted to get some co-ops on as well. Yeah, so I had another question on the cooperative front. So when you're all meeting, like, are you picking up skills and knowledge and so on from other colleagues doing completely separate jobs? And does that, like, in terms of power balance, does that affect anything? Do you all feel that you do have equal say? So I'll start with you, Louise.
I can't. Do you all feel? I can't speak for everybody. I hope everybody feels they have equal say.
You don't feel that you're, okay, I get a say, but I'm a junior partner. Like, do you feel that you...
No, I think we all have an equal say in how the business is run.
Yeah.
But operationally, when people are running projects, there's normally a project lead, and there's also senior engineers and senior architects, and then there's graduates. So there is a structure in how we operate operationally in projects. And then we do learn off each other. We've set up knowledge shares, monthly knowledge shares, where other people can share, especially if you've been on a training course, you might then bring it back and do a knowledge share to everybody else. And then also in the team meetings every month, there's set agenda, which is like finance, people, marketing. So, and then whoever's in those subgroups talks about those elements. So we're all learning off each other then. And then if somebody else joins the co-op, if we have a new person, we encourage them to drop into every single subgroup to see how it works. So by the time they've been with us for 6 months, they've seen a whole overview of the business. And then they can also decide which subgroups they want to be a member of and which ones they want to participate.
Emma, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I think Louise's is an interesting role because she has quite a few different hats, as in in terms of the practice management. So she's got she looks after HR, but she's also involved in finance quite heavily and invoicing and things. So I have perhaps fewer hats, but I get a sense of what's going on elsewhere. So I'm part of the people subgroup, so I do have quite an input to the HR side of things. I absolutely do not have a finance brain, and so I still find all of that a bit baffling, but nothing is kind of off the table. So everything is shared, everything's really transparent. If I wanted to know something, to understand something, then I would just need to ask. And for me, that's the big difference in the company that I now work for. Whereas before, there were directors having meetings behind closed doors, very hierarchical.
But traditional, because loads of companies are
very,
like that.
very traditional, very traditional. But no, I think everybody, it's not just, we're not just saying this, it is literally everybody feels, I think everybody feels that they have equal say in stuff.
Well, the votes we have on the proposals, it literally comes up everybody's, because it's all done on Lumio, which is this online platform. Everybody has that vote.
And everybody sees how you're voting as well.
We're very open.
Yeah. So there's nothing cloak and dagger about anything.
And it's like when you said voting before, like to a listener, that might be like, oh, well, you're just having a vote, that doesn't make any difference. But it's like the vote comes at the end of a deliberative process where you actually look at things, and it's like, oh, we should do this. What do we want to do? It's like, no, let's have a discussion about it.
I know, and that's the proposal process that Louise was talking about earlier that has been developed. And I'll be honest, when I first saw it, I was thinking, what is this? This is just like so... kind of blew my mind because it was so detailed and it was so precise, and you had to do this and then this and then this and then this, but it makes so much sense.
It's funny you say that, because I wrote that.
I know.
It made sense to me. Like,
I know.
Do this and then we can do this. But it is detailed, isn't it? Like,
it's really detailed. But then as a newcomer, that was really kind of like, it took some getting my head around, as did all the, we don't use Outlook, we use Mozilla, and we use Lumio for this, and we use Trello for that, and we use all these names, and everything had a different login, and I was like, what the hell?
There's a lot to take in. You did well at being onboarded eventually, Emma.
And I was a rabbit in the headlights. But once you kind of got your feet under the table and seen it in action, it makes total sense.
It's like a steep learning curve, but you were just
yeah.
So I know another question that I have for you both. Are you both familiar with Taylorism, Fordism? No, Louise is nodding, Emma's shaking.
No.
Okay. So for Emma and the listeners' benefit, the Taylorism, Fordism. So Fordism is like the production line, invention of the production line.
Okay.
Taylorism's the scientific management. So breaking down a job or a process into all the subsequent processes to speed things up, but also to kind of disempower workers and fragment knowledge and so on. And now one of the things, like there's all these discussions about productivity and this, that, and the other. And I know from my own working experience, silo working is a big problem for organizations and so on. So it's kind of like, we've invented this process, or now it's hindering us. So so I want you both, I want to get you both to kind of speak on your thoughts in terms of like, has being a cooperative eliminated silo working within the organization? Like, have you cracked the internal comms problems? Like,
I think we've got to a better situation now. We're in the office more together, where we are sharing ideas and collaborating and connecting and communicating a lot more. We went through a difficult period of working from home, all being at home and doing our jobs at home, and then coming into the office but not really seeing anybody. And now we're in a much better position, and we've come up with a hybrid working pattern that works for us. So I do think we are better at communicating and working together and seeing what everybody else does. I'm not sure where else to go. Like, we've already talked about being really open and transparent. So,
I mean, how did the structure hold up during lockdown, do you think? Do you think that was a real kind of test for, did it kind of destroy that openness and that ability to kind of collaborate?
No, I don't think so. I think we went from that point of trusting everybody to work from home. And I remember one of our directors saying, I think we communicate more, if anything, because we're all going through it together. We had that feeling of going through it together at the beginning.
Yeah.
And I think we'd more struggled coming out of lockdown because we weren't sure where were we in the office, we were at home, and then coming into the office wasn't enjoyable because you didn't see that many people. Yeah. So that was where we really struggled.
Okay, so Emma, on the kind of Taylorism, Fordism thing, like, you've come into the workplace a bit sooner, so I guess you've come from somewhere else. I mean, you must be familiar with like working in organizations where it's just like, if these two people had just had a conversation with each other. So, like, I mean, do you know what I'm getting at there? Do you see it as a much better solution? Has that problem been eliminated, do you think?
I think it's difficult to make that claim, largely because there's only 10 of us in the office.
Yeah.
You know, in an organization where you had 100 employees, I can see how you might see a massive difference from a traditional model to a cooperative model. But because there's only 10 of you anyway, at any one time, you can kind of be aware and know what your colleague is working on, what they're doing, what their issues might be, and vice versa. I can't really claim that that's because we're a co-op or otherwise. It's just that the size of the organization means that that's how it is.
Maybe one of the points of being a co-op is because we're so open and transparent about everything, and being approachable for the people, I think, is easier. You could ask people questions.
You can ask anyone in the company.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. And they kind of know what's happening. Yeah.
Yeah, and probably just the nature of our work as well, so that we have small teams each working on specific projects, and so they need to be aware of the whole picture. I don't think silo working would be even possible in that situation, because they have to collaborate with the architect or the QS or and that's external contacts, but also internally between the job leader and the graduate engineer. It's about communicating, working towards the project goals, but also getting some education and training in for the younger engineers, and that is all just, you can't do that in a silo.
Final question, and then I'll wrap it up. There is a need to kind of grow. Do you have that capacity to expand, or would that spoil things? Like, do you need to just keep a steady income, or is it like get more customers? Like, what's the plan for you guys on that front? Like, because how are you dealing with growth? What's the attitude to growth as a business or as individuals? So I'll start with you, Louise.
I don't think we need to grow for growth's sake. I think what we need to do is, our purpose is provide good jobs for our workers, because that's part of our purpose, is providing good jobs for our workers. And also, I don't necessarily think we need to grow as a business. I don't think we need to grow in terms of our size, in terms of our people. I'm not saying that we'd rule it out, and I think it could be possible in the future, but I don't necessarily think growing and being a bigger business needs to be in the plan.
Okay, Emma.
From a marketing perspective, our goal is to become the sort of go-to when people think of sustainable design in the region. We want to be at the forefront, and in order to do that, we need to really raise profile and just kind of get our name out there. I don't think we necessarily need to grow to do that. In terms of the type of work we do, I think I would like to see more of large kind of headline grabbing projects. We have one or two of those at the moment. I think I'd like to see more on our books.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe to support that type of work, we might need to take on more staff. But yeah, Louise is right, not growth for growth's sake. I think if we were able to reach a better size that would enable us to free up a bit of time to give back to the community, then that is going to require more resource. Because, you know, the alternative to that is that it requires less work, and that's not really going to be financially feasible.
So I'll flip back to you, Louise, quickly just on this. So if you had to increase capacity, like, you know, there's more work, so you need more staff for something, but it's going to be kind of short term. How do you square that circle? I mean, would it be, because you couldn't bring a temp in kind of thing?
Well, we don't want to employ short-term workers. We want to employ someone that would be a member of the co-op and actively participate and get involved, be involved in the running of the co-op. And so
you'd be looking to have that work increased.
So then I can totally see what Emma said about if our workload increased, we'd need the people to support that. And I could see that we might grow out if we had a big. And our projects go on for so long that it's not they're not really that short term. So if we had something big come in, we do look at that regularly and see how we're going to resource projects.
Yeah, you're not going to need someone additional for 3 weeks, or
we have in the past to cover gaps because we're small. We have occasionally used people temporarily, but it's not something we would like to do. But even if anyone's joined us temporarily, that we invite them to the meeting because we're spreading the co-op message.
Thank you again to Emma and Louise for being my guests. Thanks again to all my guests, and thanks to you, Leeds, for being my subject. And of course, most of all, thanks to you, my dear listener. I was hoping to double drop this episode and the next one before Christmas, then on Christmas Eve. Then I went to the pub, and then it was Christmas, and then I just spent a week playing video games. Anyway, if you want more of this show, then have a look for episode 43 right away. If it's not there, it's on its way. There's links to the BBC show mentioned in this interview, as well as links to the UK Co-op's website and B Corp UK, if you'd like to know any more about any of those things. And if you want more Passive House info, then go to listen to episode 27 of this series of Working Hours, Work Has Standards. You can follow this show on Twitter at WorkingHours3 and on Instagram at WorkingHoursPodLeads. Use the hashtag WorkingHoursPodLeads to stay up to date on when new episodes are being released, to DM me with your questions, or most importantly, to get in touch if you'd like to be my guest on this show. Please do chuck in anything you can to help the show grow. Go to ko-fi.com/workinghours and join me there for £1 a month, or you can make a one-off donation of whatever amount. You can also go to patreon.com/workinghourspod to support Working Hours, again from as little as £1 a month. Why not be super awesome and join both? Do something new and something different. Remember to like, share, follow and subscribe to Working Hours. That's me. Cheers ears. Take care out there and be kind to each other, Leeds. Working Hours is produced, recorded, edited and published by Simon Treen for Western Studios Leeds Limited. The music was The Bees from Chopin's Etudes, which is in the public domain and was taken from museopen.org. Please like Western Studios Leeds on Facebook at facebook.com/Western_Studios_Leeds and on LinkedIn, linkedin.com/company/Western-Studios. Leeds, are you considering taking the plunge into podcasts or audio content? Then think Western Studios for support, advice and guidance on getting it made. At Western Studios, you work with a real-life learner who is actually in Leeds. Not a piece of software, not a course of articles or a series of live chats and video courses, but me, a person in physical place-based reality. If you want to work with me to make your podcast or any digital audio content in Leeds, whether it's for your own cause, your publicity campaigns, to promote your products, increase your sales, or just to create your own passion projects, then get in touch with me, Western Studios, now. Don't wade through vapid articles and videos and podcasts about how to make podcasts by disembodied virtual people on the web. Get on with making your podcast now, and then when it gets hard and expensive and it all goes wrong, which it will, then call Western Studios to make your podcast with you or even for you. Western Studios will take on your podcast's boring, time-consuming and painful admin, recording, editing, transcription, whatever. Tell me about your podcasting pain points and I can make it all better for you. I feel your pain. For a charge, I will share it. Remember, podcast work is work. Leeds businesses, Leeds campaigns, Leeds brands. Got an inkling that you'd like a podcast but don't know where to start? Contact Western Studios at makemypodcast@western-studios.com and we'll start making your podcast straight away. The first hour of arranged consultation and pre-production time is free. £25 an hour after that for editing, recording, production. I can also arrange hefty discounts for the right projects. So tell me your idea and your budget and I'll tell you what I can do for you. What do you have to lose? Time. That's what. Time is running out. The best time to make a podcast was 10 years ago. The second best time is right now. Writers in Yorkshire, what are you doing with your lives? Hopefully you're writing. Well, I know there are listeners out there who want to hear great original writing performed as audio content that is about and for and has been made in Leeds. How do I know this? Because I'm one of them learners what wants it. Help me make your old screenplays, unpublished novels, unperformed plays, stories, poems, and performances, whatever you got, baby, and make it as podcast content. Is your work arty, salacious, pulpy, strange? Good. Is it unfinished? Good. I can help you with that too. I can work with you to find actors, musicians, and voiceover artists and quickly realize your projects. I get practice making the shows and you get a finished, performed and published version of your writing. Save yourself the hassle and the headache of making your podcasts on your own by working with me instead.